text here. I'm just, oh, what's that, Bloody Mary? Or is it just symptomatic? Just looking after
That's a Bloody Mary.
Nice one. You're on the airplane.
That's one of my first ones ever. My mate just made it for me. He has them every night.
Mate, that's a good place to start. Look, we'll start there because I've hit the record button, so we'll start there, Adam Hollioake. Bloody Mary. Now, that's something I only ever have on an aeroplane. I have no idea why, but I have a Bloody Mary every time I'm on an aeroplane. It does a treat. And you're sitting here on the Gold Coast drinking Bloody Marys right now. Nice to see you, Adam. How's things?
Yeah, good, mate. Good to see you again, buddy.
Hey, man. Thank you for this. It's been a little bit of hard work trying to keep you, track you down. Busy boy with lockdown and kids and things. Thank you for a bit of time. How is it, mate? How is lockdown with the kids and things?
It's like weird. It's like, I don't mind lockdown. I don't mind it at all. It's not bothering me. And I love my kids, but the two don't go together. It's like, what the hell? These guys are crazy. So, no, it's like kids aren't meant to be locked up in houses, are they? So
no. I got a couple.
Fortunate. I'm in a complex here. It's like it's kind of like Melrose Place kind of situation. We've got like 12 townhouses and then a communal area, and they can just fang around out there, so they're not going completely nuts.
How about you? You going completely nuts though?
I always was, mate. I don't need Corona to do that for me. No, I'm all right. I'm good. It's like, because I live on the Gold Coast. For those who don't know, and then I coach with the Queensland Bulls, so that's up in Brisbane. That's about an hour's drive. So I'll probably spend 2 hours a day in the car just getting to and from work.
Oh wow, yeah.
So obviously that's been taken out, and then obviously I'd probably do 4 or 5 hour days normally when I'm up there.
Yeah.
Obviously we aren't able to do that, so all of a sudden I've got all this time to do all those things which I've been saying for years that I would do. So I've been getting that stuff out the way, and then I've obviously all the gyms are closed, so I've got the car out of the garage and I've turned that into a gym.
Oh yeah.
And I've actually been training because it's right there. So whereas normally you get in the car, you got to go to the gym. It's like a whole, it's like you're a dad. You've got time to do that. So organise someone to look after the kids. So it's actually been good.
You've always got something on or something happening, haven't you? You kind of have for whatever reason, you always have a busy schedule, don't you? You try and keep things busy.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the nature of professional cricketers or ex-professional cricketers. I mean, I think we need things to keep us busy. I don't know the stats, but I'd be amazed if there wasn't a very high amount of professional cricketers who weren't on the ADHD spectrum. So we need things to keep ourselves busy. I don't think I'm that much different to anyone else. Or as in other cricketers. So I try and stay in touch with everybody on FaceTime or I've been a lot of people doing podcasts, including myself. I've been doing one as well. It's probably the worst time to launch a podcast when every other person in the world's doing.
About longevity. It's about longevity, Smokes. Just got to keep it going longer than the others.
It is. Yeah, it is.
But that's the secret to success in cricket, is sticking at it longer than the next bloke. Because that's one less bloke that you have to be better than.
Absolutely right. And I think that's probably, I don't know many cricketers that won't have had that, or sports people who won't have had that attitude or mentality at some stage. So, I think it's a good one. Like I was making a joke about everybody starting podcasts at the moment, but you're right. If you keep going and you stick at it, it's like anything. We were talking about this the other day. I was talking about resilience and getting stuff done, and I think that's what a lot of professional sports people do better than other people. Is if we were to start a marathon tomorrow, I can't imagine either of you would be that happy about it, first and foremostly, but secondly, like I think most people who haven't played some sort of sport, or certainly haven't been fortunate enough to play professional sports, will look at 42 kilometres as a massive mountain to climb. Whereas I think when you're, like you've done what we did, then you kind of break it down into smaller things. So you probably put left foot in front of your right foot, left foot in front of right, and let's just keep doing that, and eventually we're going to get there. So it's like looking at the small things first. So, and I think that's probably what makes professional cricketers, that ability to not get overawed by the big looming goals in the distance.
Fair to say that you weren't the most talented cricketer, given what you achieved, and what you went on to captain England with an Australian accent.
Thanks. I didn't come here to get sledged, mate.
No, I didn't mean that. No, I genuinely,
No.
I mean that as a positive.
I know,
because
I get it,
because I certainly was never ever the most talented player in any team that I played in, but I went on and did okay. Sort of similar, same boat, or you thought you were pretty good?
Mate, humbleness isn't probably one of my major skills or talents. No, I think it's pretty well documented that I'm actually the one who came out first and said that I'm not that talented. I think probably that was highlighted by the fact that I had such a ridiculously talented brother.
Yeah.
So that often sort of makes it stand out more than it did. You know, he bowl 140, played effortless shots and take catches one-handed behind his back.
Yeah.
And then I was there just battling to play a good forward defence and like running out with my biomechanically challenged action and just scavenging around for stuff. But, you know, that's the beautiful thing about our game is that it takes all sorts of people. And, you know, there are people out there, you can be successful if you show resilience and stick at it and, you know, some sort of fortitude to keep going. So I'll definitely be in that bracket though, mate, where the game didn't come that naturally to me.
And that was a really cool word, actually. You sort of scavenged around. I quite like the sound of that. You sit in and you find a hole that you can fill, and you find a feed that you can sit down and eat. Did you have to look for a place? Did you have to look take Surrey or take cricket as you're growing up? Did you have to look for a spot in the team that you could try and fill, or were you always in that team and they would build a team around you?
I think it varied. When I was young, I had a couple of injuries when I was probably, I want to say 18 or 19. I used to bowl a decent pace. I was never like express, but I was a lot faster than what people saw of me during my international days. But as you know, I'm not the tallest person in the world either. So there's not been many guys under 6 foot have had long, successful careers at fast bowling. So I sort of worked out pretty quickly. And if there was to say anything, what I lacked in talent, I probably made up for with my problem solving, I would say. I'd say that was probably my biggest talent, was my ability to solve problems. Like if I'm running out and bowling at someone who I've got no chance of getting out, I'm not going to run up and pitch leg and hit the top of off. I might say, okay, well, if I just keep it dry here and hit the back of a length and keep it field and then try and deceive him with a slug or just play on his mind, on stopping him scoring and try and snare one there, then I might be able to nip someone out early on. And then if I can get another wicket, this is just the luck of the game, then I've got 3. You know what I mean? There's 3.
I've got there's a bit of a thing that I've sort of been working on is that the appearance of a dumb cricketer is actually quite a smart cricketer, and you've kind of explained it there a little bit. You'd love to be able to bowl leg stump and hit the top of off. You'd love to be able to that, but I'm not good enough to that, so I'm just going to bowl a channel. So by bowling dumb, if you like, because you can't do the glamour stuff, you're actually bowling smart. Do you see what I'm saying there?
Yeah, no, I like that. I'd say more, I agree with it, but also maybe it's knowing and playing within your limitations, maybe.
And that's the smart bit.
As a batsman, yeah, that's the smart bit, I think, is. And the same as a batsman. If I tried to go out and play like Virat Kohli, I'm not going to last very long. You know what I mean? But if I work out my strengths and what I can do, and don't worry about how it looks, just solve the problem, then you can have success. And there's been some batters who've gone through careers, got 10,000 first-class runs with 2 shots.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's got a forward defence and a lead, but they might have a and one that they push through the covers, and one that they work off their legs. And they'll
Lefties.
just do that day in, day out. They don't go outside of that, and they're mentally strong.
Basically, every left-hander in the world will tuck off the hips and one through cover point. That's
exactly,
how you make money,
exactly right. Yeah, well, they learn to play within their limits. They know the dangers, and yeah, I mean, I think that's sport as well. I think it's, and you know, I know you're a proud Kiwi, but I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing about why the All Blacks have been so successful over the years is, I mean, everyone associates them with, you know, expansive and free-flowing rugby, but then there's times when, you know, it requires 10-man rugby, and they'll revert to that, or they'll just keep it tight in the forwards, and they'll work their way up the field, and that's smart problem solving, and that's why they're one of the greatest teams in the history of sport, not just rugby. So it's that sort of thing which I think you get. I mean, obviously you've got a massive talent pool of rugby players as well, so that helps. But it's when those two things collide, like immense talent and the ability to problem solve, that you end up with greatness. So probably why I wasn't ever great, but I was adequate.
Where's that problem solving come from? What as a kid did you used to do that now you look back and go, actually, geez, I was quite good at problem solving? Did you used to create things, make things, pull things to bits? Were you always inquisitive? Were you always looking to invent something new, or how did you discover that problem solving was one of your skills?
I probably didn't actually until just now. Literally until we just talked about it just then. I thought, well, yeah, I wasn't that talented, but I kind of done what I did without having something. And I actually stopped and thought, well, what was it that I did? And I was like, and you sort of prompting me with the knowing that I'm not fast enough to bowl a bouncer and then a Yorker. Yeah. So then it's the ability to solve the problem and work out what you've got to do. So I guess just those things prompted me to realise that was this. I mean, this is unbelievable. People may find this hard to believe because we're so fluent here, mate, that this isn't rehearsed. This is off the cuff. But yeah, so it's ironic because I think a lot of today's cricketers, I mean, you get a lot of players who go, back in our day things were better. Well, I'm here to disagree with that because they're bowling faster, they're hitting it harder, they're better. I mean, every sport's better. I think like Jesse Owens was supposedly the best 100-meter runner, you know, one of the legends of all time. If you take his time now, he doesn't even qualify for the Olympics. So everything's got faster, everyone's jumping higher, everything's got better. I don't suppose cricket's the only thing that's gone backwards. So I think we've got to accept that cricket has gone forward. But with that probably comes the ability for people to rely on those better skills, and maybe, just maybe, through society, the way it is and everything's easier than it's ever been. Everything's solved for us by our phones, or everything's. So I think problem solving is probably the one area where we might not be improving as fast as the other areas.
Do you so with the coaching that you do now, I know you've been linked. I know you've been doing a little bit of stuff with Surrey, with some stuff with England, some stuff obviously with Queensland. Do you think because there is a massive lean towards matchups, those statistical matchups, looking at left-handers versus right-handers and who's going to bowl. Do you think their ability to on-the-spot problem solve has been slightly blanketed, sort of covered over by this matchup sort of philosophy, the problem solving that happens on a computer before the game starts, rather than
mate, that's a really, really valid point and good point. Problem solving is a skill like bowling outswingers or playing the off drive. It's in the same bracket. If you don't practice it, you don't get better at it. So let's take, for example, when you and I were growing up. If I said, hey, mate, I'll come around to your house. First of all, I've got to get my file of facts out, look at the number. Then I've got to, like, ring it. Like, if I make a mistake, then, hey, mate, what's your number? Where do you live? And then I have to write down the address. Then I've got to get the Refidex out or the Atlas or whatever it is. And then I've got to write down the instructions, what roads I've got to take. Then I've got to drive there with it in my car, stopping every now and then. Then if I get lost, I'm going to have to get good at speaking to people and say, hey, mate, do you know where where Ian lives. Do you know what I mean? So there's the whole. Whereas now you ring up, go, hey mate, yeah, come around at 1 o'clock. I'll send you my address. You go, don't. You send it to me. I click on it. I put it in my car, and that tells me exactly how to get. I hate to know what would happen these days if I lost my phone. I don't even know anyone's phone number.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's scary. So I mean, that's because of that. We don't practice day-to-day problem solving because everything's done and everything's made easy for us. So that's just in every way day-to-day. And then you take into consideration cricket, where boundaries smaller, bats are bigger. A lot of the problems can be solved by just whacking it further. So therefore, and people just rely on their skills. So they don't have that same ability. So they don't have the same need for that ability, should I say.
Yeah. This is, I agree with all of that, in terms of how our direction memory works. We don't have to worry about directions. We don't have to remember our girlfriend's phone numbers. Hi, Mrs. Hollioake, is Adam there, please? We don't have to have those skills anymore, because I can straight away get in touch with whoever I sort of need to. Do you think we've replaced those skills? So we take away those sort of societal problem solving, but we add to our skill set in terms of our overall sort of cricket skills. Do you think we've been able to fill one in with the other?
Well, it comes back. I think that comes back to what you were saying before, where as coaches, well, supposedly that coaches are better than, everything's got better. I suppose coaches theoretically should have got better as well. So our ability to go away and research stuff and solve the problems for the players is another hindrance to the player in some ways. And I guess my ethos as a coach, and look, it's only early days. I'm certainly not sitting here saying I'm a great coach and everyone should listen to what I've got to say. But for me personally, if I'm talking to Adam Hollioake and trying to improve myself, I'm saying you've got to let the players solve the problems themselves. You've got to try and create an environment where they're solving it themselves. If you're just spoon feeding people, then they're not going to learn to solve the problem. And they're out there on the pitch. They're the ones that are out there. So as a coach, you've got to humble yourself and listen to what's coming back and be able to learn from it. I mean, we don't know the games. As coaches, we've got to learn. And there's this theory, I think it's Hollywood that's done it, where the movie is like the side's losing 5-0 in a game of football, and the coach goes and says, right, some rousing Churchillian type speech, and then they go out and we win 6-5 in extra time. Well, in reality, coaching's not like, it might happen once in your career, but it's not really like that. I think it's just helping people and allowing them to grow themselves and let them find the results themselves. When I look back on it, the best coach I ever played under was Keith Medlicott. And then I was thinking, because obviously I'm trying to improve. If you're a musician and you play guitar, I don't know, but you probably wanted to go and look at Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton. That'd be a good start. Do you know what I mean? If you want to be a fast bowler, there's probably worse places to go and look than Glenn McGrath or Ambrose, the guys who've got the most wickets. So we do things like that. So I looked at coaches, and the coach I looked back on was Keith Medlicott, because he was the best coach I played under. And I thought, okay, at what stage did he come out with his Churchillian speech where he said something? And I went, not once. But where he was very good was he allowed me to think for myself and let me solve the problems. And then when I solved it, he asked me the questions that would enable me to solve the problem myself. And then he would give me the confidence to go out and implement it. And you're a dad. If you say, how many times did you have to say to your kids when they were young, don't touch that, it's hot.
Yep.
Don't touch that, it's hot. Or don't do something because it's dangerous. Until they actually do it and they get hurt, they won't learn the lesson. So you've got to kind of let them make their mistakes, but hopefully you don't want to do anything too bad. But until they actually get burnt, then they understand, I know what that means now. But
outside, look, I know you reasonably well from spending a bit of time around changing rooms with you sort of post retirement, sort of finishing career. How did you take, from the outside looking in, a pretty, you're not a typical captain, put it that way, in terms of how you talk and how you hold yourself. You're not a typical England captain, but you're probably the most obscure England captain of all time. How did you fill that role? No, take that as a compliment because I love it. It's outside the box. Were you were you the bad kid that they made captain to try and rein in, or did they give you, did they know and see what you had in terms of being able to control a group of guys and being able to pick the right plan and problem solve? How did they get that feel?
Oh no, that's a really good question, mate. So basically, my captaincy, I've never captained anything. You've hit the nail on the head, mate. You should have got a job there as a psychologist coming up. But I was the bad kid. I'd never captained a game of sport in my life. And Graham, we'd a 95 series, Surrey, we were bottom of the table. We were stone motherless last. Everyone had to go. Literally every single player in the side had to go at captaining. They were horrible. The side was out of control. We were a rabble. We were bottom of the table. It was a nightmare scenario, I think.
What sort of out of control? Just off the field or on the field? Lack of discipline off, lack of discipline on the field. No sort of plan, no direction.
Just a bit of everything, really. Nothing.
Cool.
When I say out of control, I'm not saying we're out there like really swinging from the chandeliers. I mean, it's just as in we had no direction. We didn't have any goals. We didn't have any leaders. It was someone having a go at the captaincy, and then no one really buying into it. And I was the youngest guy on the side at the time. I mean, 22 or something like that. And Graham Clinton came to me and said, "We want you to have a go at captaining." So I looked around behind me. I thought there must be someone standing behind. But I'd always the bad guy. I was always the naughty kid, the rebellious one. And I think I've been in more fights than I had captain games of sport in my life. So it was. I wasn't particularly captaincy material, but I think I went into it, and if I look back, I reckon it's quite lucky that how it ended up working, because I remember going and captaining, and we had in that side we had Alex Stewart, Graham Thorpe. Well, they were often away playing for England, but we had some good players, Martin Bicknell and Alistair Brown. All these guys played international cricket, and I remember saying to them, "Hey, listen, I'm the youngest guy here. A lot of you guys are better than me, so I'm going to need your help. But this is our team. This isn't my team. This is our team. So we've got to buy into this together." And I don't know if it was that sort of gathered everybody together. And I think also because I wasn't in there going, right, I'm the captain, this is what you're going to have to do. And I just don't think in that situation it would have worked. I mean, the fact is I wasn't credentialed enough to walk in and be that person to say that. I was probably the least experienced player on the side.
So how do you tell?
And then
tell Alex Stewart how to bat?
Pardon?
How do you tell Alex Stewart how to bat? How do you tell Graham Thorpe how to play? How we want to play this game? This is our sort of our pattern that we're trying to play. Need you to hang in there for 5 overs, and then maybe. How do you tell these guys how to do those things at 22 and 23?
Yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. I'm not saying I did it. I'm not saying I went in and I did this. And
no.
It was. I mean, I got them on side, I think, by saying, "Look, mate, you guys are way better than I am, but I'm going to need you to help me out here. I know you're away with England half the time, but when you're back, I really sort of need your help, and I want to come to you for advice. Are you open for that?" And they're good guys, so it's not like we're dealing with guys who are bad people. They wanted us to win as well, so they bought into it. So I reckon that was. In looking back, then we just got on a roll, and then my captaincy grew. And
you're a good team, though.
Kind of just developed. I developed my.
In terms of captaincy growing, you still had a good team around you, so it wasn't like you were trying to get a bad team better. You were trying to get a good team to play together.
100%. I'm completely realistic and understand that I had a tremendous bunch of players. I'm not saying that. I had a bunch of Muppets and I just turned up. They gave me the captaincy. I gave a couple of amazing team speeches, and then we turned into the best candy in the country. That would be a lie, and I'm not going to be fooling everyone, because that's just not what happened. But that said, there's been a lot of very good sides with a lot of good players who have never achieved their potential. So bad leadership can affect adversely in the performance of a side. So I'd say that probably just being humble and listening to my players, and I think also number one thing was not really having a desire to want to actually be the captain. I think a lot of people who want to be the leader, they value it too much, so therefore they're scared of losing it. Therefore they act in a certain way. They lose their sense of humor. They lose their personality. And then they allow the captaincy to weigh on them, and then they feel the losses and the wins so much more than everybody else. Where you've got to accept that as captain that everybody wants to win and lose just as much as you. Well, win. They don't want to lose, but
yeah. But that's a really interesting thought. They're scared of losing the captaincy. That's
yeah.
That, I mean, like in terms of our positions in a cricket team, in terms of being a bowler or, you know, being selected, you have a couple of bad days, you know, could be on the block. As a batsman, you have a couple of bad days, could be on the block. But as a captain, you're scared of losing that position. That's not something that is sort of ever entered my mind, that you can captain through fear of losing your position in the team.
Have you done any captaincy?
No, mate, I'm terrible. No, I'm terrible.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, I mean, it's not for everybody, but it is. I mean, I guess if you haven't done it, then you don't really, I'm not trying to say that you don't understand. It's like you don't, yeah, I guess in case you put yourself in that position. I mean, I didn't ever have any desires to ever be captain until I was like captain of Surrey. I didn't really want to be captain of Surrey. I just wanted to be in the team. I 100% had fear of being dropped from the team, but I didn't have any fear of being dropped as captain. Yeah. Then when I got made captain of England a lot, I was. I didn't care. I just wanted to get into international cricket. So then when I got into international cricket and I got given the England captain, then eventually in England captaincy, for some reason, for whatever reason, I don't know. I haven't, mate. Well, you'll have to solve it for me. You've solved every other issue so far in this podcast so far. We'll have to. I did actually go through a period where I started worrying about losing the captaincy, and that was probably the only time in my career as a cricketer that I genuinely worried about losing the captaincy, and I think that reflected in my last few games as captain.
There's a thing that happens when we play something new. Like if you've never played poker before, you end up being quite good initially because you don't overthink the game. So is there an element that when you first started captaining for Surrey, you didn't overthink it, you just went with a feel and you played your cards as opposed to trying to play everybody else's cards? And then when you stepped up to your England stuff, is that when it got a little bit, you knew you could do it, and that was when it got a little bit squeaky and started overthinking a lot of the decisions?
Yeah, it's probably like, you know, and when you play, you know, when you're a bowler and you go out to bat and you bat 8 or 9, and you're not expected to score runs, and then you score 50.
I don't know 8 or 9, but yeah.
But if you're a batsman, you know, a bowler, and you're in the side of the bowler, and you're not expected to score runs, all of a sudden, they pick you in the side as someone to score runs. It's a totally different proposition. Yeah. And I think when I was captain of England, I just all of a sudden, if I'm being honest, 100% honest with the people on your podcast here, I would say that I started listening to voices outside in the media and people, what they say, I should have done this, I should have done that. I've never done that before. Yeah. So I probably don't like to admit that because I like to think of myself as a mentally strong person or whatever, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I did hear voices and you do. Everyone's an expert, especially in hindsight. I've never made a bad decision as a captain in hindsight. Yep. But everyone's wise after the event, but you got to read that afterwards, and that can get frustrating, and that's a really hard skill when you're captaining your country, to keep control of those emotions and not let them run riot. You played it was a pretty tough one-day era for the England team in terms of success, win-loss record. Those, listening to those voices, hearing media, hearing other people's opinions, what did that do? How did that make you judge yourself, value yourself, try and play cricket with those monkeys on your back? Well, it was weird because I played 5 one-day internationals and then I got made captain after 5 games. I hadn't really established myself as a player, so I think that's hard as well. Yeah. I think it's nice if you've got any self-establishment. I was trying to play for my place as well as concentrate on the captaincy. I'm an all-rounder as well, so bat, bowl, usually fielding one of the key positions, captaining. So, and I was 24. So it's like it was quite a big thing. And then initially, the success we had was, I mean, when someone comes to you and offers you the captaincy of England, you don't turn it down. But if I'd been truer to myself, I would have said, "Hey, look, I'm not really ready yet. I need another, a dozen games before I'll be totally ready to captain at this level." But then we went straight into the Champions Trophy in Sharjah. Went there, we had half a side, quite a few players rested, and we won that. So my first 4 games as captain, we won. So it was like, what the hell? So it wasn't expected. We were going there to get beaten. Everyone knew we were a weak side, and we won that. Then from there, it could only get worse, really. That's when it became tough, I think. And then, because at first we were a weak side, we weren't expected to do well. And then we're hitting people with these tactics. It was like hit and run, on one-off games. We beat sides, but then international cricket, it's hard. It's hard. There's good players up there in every country. And they start analysing, they start getting a better look at you, and then sides started coming up with tactics to counteract some of the tactics that I had. So, it's tough. I mean, it's not called Test cricket or it's not international cricket for no reason. Everyone up there knows what they're doing.
What did that do to you when it wasn't? So you have this initial success. Wow, and then what did that do to you as a player? When the team was losing, and the team couldn't produce what you had done in take Sharjah, no win situation. So there's complete freedom. And then
exactly right,
and then the pressure's on because you have some success. How did you sleep? How did you travel? How did you deal with everybody else's moods? Because when you're losing, everybody's grumpy.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's a really good point. We went from there and we went to the Caribbean and we had a 5-match series out there. And the West Indies weren't a great side at that stage, but they're hard to beat in the West Indies. So we went from there and we started losing. And then exactly what you're talking about started happening. People started getting, antsy. And David Lloyd, the coach, started to feel like he was coming under pressure as a coach. And then from there we came back to England and we had to play South Africa. And as you know, at that time in the late 90s, they were the best side in the world. So we had to play them, and albeit we were very successful in our home conditions during that period of time, it was the best side in the world. So I would say stats can tell a story, but you can make them say whatever you want. We were playing the best side in the world. We could have won that series 3-0. We ended up losing it 2-1. We lost 2 very close games. And the highlights and the way the media portrayed it was we hadn't lost a home one-day series in 6 or 7 years. So it was my captaincy, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not bitter about it. Or I'm not. I'm just stating a fact, and that's how it went. But it did actually definitely get to me.
But that stings.
That absolutely stings. And you start questioning yourself, and then all of a sudden, something which I never even wanted in the first place, I start thinking about it, and like it's consuming my day. I'm there talking. My players who are coming up and asking me advice on how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that. I'm being consumed by how I'm going to quieten down the critics, the people in the cheap seats. So it's, I mean, and we've all been there. I think we've all been there. If you've played international cricket, we've all been there where those voices start and the knives start getting sharp. You can feel them. You can hear them getting, when you're playing there, you can hear them getting sharpened. And if you haven't been there, that you haven't, for me, if you haven't encountered the knife sharpening and gone through it, then you haven't lived. That's the ultimate challenge as an international sportsman, to know everyone's sharpening their knives and still be able to go out there and play. So,
I used to there'd be highlights. There'd be an hour of highlights at the end of a day's play, whether it be a one day or a test match. There'd be an hour of highlights, sort of like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I used to stay up and watch them, on a playing day to find out what they were saying about me in real time, because it's wickets and fours, you know, in the highlights. So if I'm bowling, I'm getting hit for four mostly. So I was always stay up, but I had to hear it because I had this weird need to know what they were saying, and that wasn't helpful anyway. And
it's weird, isn't it?
And then you add to it that you're a captain.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think it's necessarily any worse for a captain as a player. It's equally bad. It's like, it's hard when you're hearing those things. It's kind of like when you know people are talking about you behind your back, because you can not know people are talking about you behind your back at all. You can get suspicions sometimes that they are, but you don't really know. But when it's on the front page of the newspaper, it's not really behind your back. It's kind of like right in your face. But because of the nature of the way most of us handle it, you sound like you were different in that you just confronted it front on. But I chose for a lot of my career to just not read the media and to try and avoid it. And my friends thought they were being really nice to me. They go, "Oh, did you hear what he said?" I'm like, "Mate, I try not to. I try not to hear what he has to say about me."
I made that mistake once. I walked into breakfast and there was a bit of a slam piece on Brendan McCullum one day, and I walked in and I kind of wanted to actually prepare Brendan before he saw it, if that makes sense. Like I said, "Oh, have you seen today's paper? Because it's not too good." And he goes, "Oh, why'd you tell me that?" And it's like, I didn't then realize that, yes, some people avoided it so strictly that I had completely overstepped the mark by trying to pre-warn them for it.
Well, you would have been quite inexperienced, quite young then, I'm thinking.
Young and experienced, but older. Just did not understand that how some people just wanted to avoid everything, especially when it was a bad day.
Yeah.
So how did you escape? How did you bring yourself back to being Adam Hollioake as opposed to England captain, superstar all-rounder? How did you escape and come back down to find peace, if you like?
I just ran away to Australia.
Yeah.
It was no. My family's out here. I mean, obviously, I've got some other facets to my life which have come into play. So obviously, my brother died there, which coincided towards. Well, I was only 31 when I retired, so I left the game early, probably based on the fact that my brother dying, me wanted to be back with my family, a whole bunch of other things which are lesser things that impacted on that as well. So I was retired by the time I was 31. I was just coming into my prime. So it was a strange scenario, but it's quite weird because you go from the heights of playing for England and being captain and successful of the best side in the country, all of a sudden to nothing at all. So like within the space of no time at all. So I stepped right out of the game, and it was actually probably the first month or two was weird because you felt like, you probably would have felt this yourself. I feel like I should be back playing, but all of a sudden you're not. And then I guess it took me about 2 or 3 months. Every day I'd sit there and watch the internet and watch the scores for Surrey. Then by the end of the season, I wasn't even checking the scores. So you just sort of wean your way out of it, I think.
So those priorities completely changed after Ben went, yeah? Definitely. I mean, so I think people. Probably a lot of your viewers there have got siblings, so I'm not alone there. But we kind of had a unique relationship in that we went to boarding school together, and then when he left boarding school, he came and played with Surrey and he lived with me. So I'd field at second slip, he'd field at gully. So I don't know how many 200 times a day the ball would come through the wicket keeper. John Batty or Alex Stewart would throw the ball to me at second slip. I'd throw it straight to my brother. So it was like this affirmation every day. I was throwing the ball to my brother like 200 times a day. And then all of a sudden he was dead and I was throwing it was Ricky Clark. So it was just, that was a constant reminder. And whilst cricket was something we both loved together, it was also something which was a real
tough reminder every time I was throwing that ball to gully. So,
do you now hate Ricky Clark?
No. Ricky's
No, I don't mean it like that. I'm just trying
he's a
to
good
find
guy.
some light in this. That's all. Because it's, mate, I couldn't imagine it. I mean, I got an older sister, I got a younger brother, and I could not imagine anything like that. And you saw him every day with cricket, and that's just. I mean, that's pretty. That is special. Walking out to play for England with your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
it's amazing.
It's not that uncommon, but it's still bonkersly amazing. Put your arm around you, hey bro, and just.
It is weird, isn't it? Because there's been, I mean, I get, I still see the news. On Google, you can see. I put your name in there, so whenever you end up in a newspaper article, you come up. And I noticed a lot. I've been mentioned in newspapers a lot, articles recently, because obviously the Curran brothers are playing.
Yeah.
And they're talking about them playing in their Test debut together. Mm-hmm. And it was me and my brother were the last ones to play for England together. Yeah. So that was in 1997. Wow. So it's 23 years ago. So it's a rare thing. I mean,
you were 22, 23 when you were playing for England, so it's a whole lifetime ago.
Oh, it is, yeah. Yeah, it's exactly right. It is literally, it's half my life, yeah. So, it's weird, isn't it? I don't know if you get this, but some time messes around with your head, I reckon. Like, there's some things, like, some days I bet you feel like yesterday that you were running out there playing for New Zealand, and then other times you probably watch on TV and you go, I can't even remember. It seems like a lifetime ago. And it's the same thing with my brother, especially with, I find with big events that happens, depending on what way you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
I seem sometimes I expect him to just walk in the door.
I was going to say, do you sometimes just think, oh, Ben might pop around, or Ben's coming? Yeah?
100%, yeah. Wow. And then there's other times where I think he's been gone so long that I can't even remember what he looks like.
Yeah.
Other than by looking at pictures. So it's a really strange phenomenon. I should actually look that up and find out what that is. So.
No, I think that's really common. I just yesterday, I was whatever I was doing, but I was like, oh, I felt like I bowled 140 clicks again. Like I just had this feeling that I could go out and bowl 140 clicks, and it was like, nah, well I can't. But it's over 10 years ago. It was just over 10 years ago since I finished playing, so it's not quite as like that, but it's 10 years ago, but there are still feelings that are like just yesterday, completely just cricket related, not sort of sibling related, but it's mad. So you went from cricket back to Oz, and then now see, this is and I've had this conversation with you a few times, and I still can't understand it. How do you take a punch, man? What do you do? I still cannot get this.
Yeah, no, something I did I can see why, because I think when people now, especially when they meet me, I'm not particularly like aggressive, or I'm pretty laid back.
Mate, I'm scared. I'm scared of you every time I see you. You're huge.
But I'm not an aggressive guy. I'm not, I guess I'm not outwardly out there. I'm not beating people up or anything like that. So, and it was the same thing throughout my career. I was the same. But I started boxing when I was 12, and it was something which I did during the off seasons. And you know, cricket's littered with guys who've got other interests outside cricket. 95% of them is golf.
Sure.
But I was a terrible golfer, so I love boxing. So during the off season, I used to go and box with my mates. A lot of them were proper professional boxers, so I'd go and do that, and I'd enjoy it. Keep me fit. It was fun. Is
it a little bit movie cliche? Bad kid goes and does boxing to find some sort of structure, not find structure, but find some put his energy, put it somewhere.
Not really. I think mine was pretty much more simple than that. I watched some Rocky films when I was young, and I thought, wow, I really loved them.
Yeah.
And then Mike Tyson was on the scene, and then I wanted to learn to do that. And I think that's like anyone. I mean, I did the same thing with cricket. I remember when I was young, I used to see Michael Holding bowling, and I wanted to bowl like him. And Viv Richards was the other guy who I wanted to bat like Viv and bowl like Michael Holding. The fact was, I bowled more like Danny DeVito and batted like bloody Dolly Parton.
Not bad, bro. Not bad.
I tried my best.
Well, you did both.
Yeah.
Michael Holden couldn't really swing a bat, and Viv couldn't bowl so much. So
Yeah. So it's I think you're generally people when they get into sports, someone's inspired them to want to do it.
Yeah.
So it was as simple as that, really. It was just the era of the Rocky films and Mike Tyson and then it was something.
Then you turned it into a job for a bit, if you like.
Yeah.
Now that's a interesting decision.
Yeah.
Former England.
It's not really. It wasn't really a decision.
So that's what I mean.
Kind of like,
yeah, but you're a former England captain. Again, you're not an England captain cut out by any means stretch. So I guess it's not that unusual for you to be doing this, but it's still going from cricket into beating someone up. I know you'll say it's different to that, but that is a really strange transition to then do that to make money.
Yeah, and it's kind of and what you're saying is 100% correct. And anyone who's listening or watching, I don't expect them to think anything else, and that's a crazy decision. But I just think sometimes in life, it's a whole catalogue of events can end up being in this scenario, which you just end up going down that road. We've probably all done it where, where it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and all of a sudden we're in some strange person's house and their dog's like humping your leg or something. I mean, how did I get here? How did this happen? There's a whole bunch of of things that should just enabled you. Yep. So I just had I had a property development company, and it went bad during the GFC. I was in Australia. I'd alienated myself from cricket after my brother.
Did you blame cricket, or did you just not want to be around cricket?
No, I don't think I blamed it.
But it was just too painful, or
I think it was just the way it worked out. It was like, as an English cricketer in Australia, they're not that well liked. So it wasn't like I was going to be able to. I needed to be back here for my family. So I left England, and there's only a finite amount of jobs in cricket. So I came back, and I had a property development company which was successful, and then that went down during the GFC. So all of a sudden I was 37, 38 years old, and I had alienated myself from cricket in England. Everyone in Australia doesn't really rate English cricketers, or doesn't like. There's only a small amount of jobs in Australian cricket, so understandably they want to give them to Australians. And then I'd left school at the age of 16 to become a professional cricketer. So my qualification, I had no work experience. I'd only been an entrepreneur. So all of a sudden my options were limited. I mean, there was always I could have left and gone back to England and found a job if I wanted to. That was always an option, but I didn't want to take that route. I wanted to try and, no pun intended, fight my way out of the situation and face it front on. And it was just by coincidence, really. I was training. I'd hurt my ankle and I couldn't run, so I was training, doing some boxing, and next minute I was helping some guys here get ready for fights, and I was fighting the Australian cruiserweight champion in training, and I knocked him out. So then all of a sudden, that my trainer, everything was like, you should consider fighting professionally. I was like, mate, I'm 38. I'm like, it's no age to be making your debut as a boxer. And he said, but then he did the very clever thing. He appealed to my ego, which has always been huge. So he said, wow, it'd be pretty cool to say you captained England and also were a professional boxer. And I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Well played, sir.
Yeah. So next minute I was fighting professional. I had my first professional fight, and then I knocked that guy out. And then because I got a background in wrestling as well, then another month later I was there having my cage fighting debut, so a professional debut. So I just got on this journey that I started off just fighting on the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and then I started traveling around Australia to fight, and eventually I was fought around the world. London and Dubai and Jakarta. And
draw any parallels from the fear that I had facing stupid quick guys, especially Stain, to walking into a ring? Do you have that? I'm sure when you were batting, you had that fear at some stage. Someone could actually hurt you, could break a rib, could dong you. Yeah. Did you have that fear when you were walking into a ring, or is it a completely different feeling, scenario, mindset?
It's probably an unfair comparison there, mate, because I was paid to face fast bowlers. You're a bowler, right? So, I mean, cricket's one of the crazy games where we ask people who aren't qualified to do something to go. It's madness, really, when you can, you know. But I always felt my skills were going to be good enough to get me out, no matter how fast the bowling was. I mean, don't get me wrong, my heart was going, my adrenaline would be up and what have you, but I always felt like my skills, as long as I remained calm, that my skills would prevent me from getting physically hurt. So I never had the physical fear. I had, the fear I had was the fear of being embarrassed. So if someone bowled a fast ball on my head, that I turned my head and hit my glove and went up in the air and everyone was laughing at me walking off. And that was very similar to the only fear that I had when I was fighting. I wasn't physically scared of getting punched in the face or even getting knocked out. What my fear was waking up or looking up off the canvas and my family looking at me or friends looking at me and just losing face in front of them, I think was probably the only thing that was my fear. It wasn't a physical fear, I don't think, because you always feel like, it's different. It might be different for you because you don't train for that. Whereas I trained as a batter to not get hit, and as a fighter, you train to when you get in there to be able to access your skills. And I would expect people who don't train in that to be scared. You'd be stupid if you didn't. If someone put me in a fencing fight, I'd be terrified. I don't know how to fence. Or riding a horse. I've been on a horse before. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever been. I don't know how to ride a horse. So that's scary. So
again, I'm going to ask for a parallel. Is there anything like hitting the creamy cover drive and then feeling a punch that connects? Is there any similarities in that rush? Because I can't feel I can't understand what that feeling would be. I've hit a couple out the middle, if that makes sense, and there is a rush. There is this, oh wow, that was cool. That was
maybe the equivalent would be probably knocking someone's off pole out of the ground.
Yeah, but there's just that connection. I think there's an impact. Oh wow, I got that, and that was nice. Is there any kind of a tingle when you get a good hit in?
It made me sound like you're making me sound evil, but
no. I'm trying to understand the sensation, if that makes sense. Because if you hit someone, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put them on the canvas, and I'm trying to hit the ball to the boundary. So
I guess it is. I mean, sitting here in a very relaxed environment with my Bloody Mary and just in a very relaxed environment, it's hard to put myself in that space where I'm feeling some sort of joy at someone else's pain.
It's not joy, but there's
but put me in that scenario where I'm in there and I'm fighting and the adrenaline's going and I've trained for 6 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is for this guy, and I believe this guy, he wants to knock me out, he wants to hurt me, and we've both sacrificed 2 months of our lives to be there to try, and we're both trying to take from one another. Yes, there is a satisfaction out of knocking someone out, but it's very hard to. I feel like a bad person for saying that sat in this environment. It's because it's different to hitting a cover drive. It'd be like saying, would you take any satisfaction out of ending someone's career? The opposition, you're like, well, I want to hit him for some fours, but I don't want the guys. You know what I mean? It's like, At the time, you're thinking, this is your last game, mate.
Yeah. So but there's you're sitting there and you hit one and it's like, good shot, as you would do with a cover drive or whatever. So there is a I did good there.
Yeah.
But it's yeah. I'm not turning you into someone that likes punching someone and gets joy out of punching someone, but you must be able to self-praise on a good hit. That makes sense.
Yeah, you do, and I think you become desensitized to it.
Yeah.
I mean, standing here, like I'm like literally my trainer and my other guys. I train some of the fight. The thought of actually going fighting is something that I said I cannot think of anything worse than going having a fight now. Just does not appeal to me. I guess I'm feeling what my friends used to feel like when I said I was going to go and fight. It's like I just have zero interest in hurting anyone. I have zero interest in getting punched in the face. But
it's your money maker.
It's the part of it's what you do. It's like you said, playing a good cover drive. You become desensitized to it. You don't associate in punching someone in the face with hurting them. You just associate them with executing your skill well.
Yeah. The captaincy, the decision making, the problem solving, is that handy asset going into a cage, going into a fight, that having those abilities to think fast, evaluate, change a tactic? Do you see a transfer?
It is. There's a lot of transferable skills from cricket to fighting. Unbelievably, since I came out of fighting, I worked with England for a while, and they asked me, they wanted me to come in, and because they said, I wanted to get an insight into my mental preparation for fighting, and this mental toughness. And without trying to do myself out of a job, I said, listen, cricketers are on another level to fighters mentally, because I just believe that two things. Number one, the longer the game and the more time there is in between, the more time our mind has got to play. And like golf messes with your mind sometimes. You've got so much time before each shot.
Yeah.
If you're fighting, a lot of it's reaction and subconscious, and there's no time for your mind to mess around. Yes, of course, you've got to be brave, but bravery and mental toughness are removed. So, and then the other thing which people forget about is, you can't fight every day. You might have a fight every 2 or 3. If you have 5 a year, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But in a game, so that's probably 5 times you're dealing with emotions like nerves or ego or apathy or whatever emotion you're experiencing. Whereas in batting or bowling, you might get nervous 30 or 40 times in a season.
That fear of failure on a big stage happens a lot more with cricket. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so your ability to have to cope with those emotions is tested so much more. Like I said, there's always so much more time to think about things. Yes, fighters are brave physically, and you've got to stop the voices. There's always got the voices.
What are the voices? What are the voices?
Pardon?
What are the voices?
So the voice. Well, I used to call my voice Dave, because he'd be, when I was batting, I'd be just going along nicely, just batting, playing the ball on its merits, and then Dave would pop in and be like, all right, you should try and whack one over the pavilion.
Oh, Dave. Oh, GF30. Oh, good for 30, Dave. He just pops in.
Yeah.
30 and you do something dumb. Yeah.
Exactly. Or like you just bowling, bowled a couple, like 11 good balls on and around off stump. You should probably just keep the 12th on there, but you think, I'm going to go for the in-swinging Yorker. And then you get flicked through mid-wicket for 4. So Dave's there. He was always there throughout my whole career, and he was there in my fighting career as well. So
what's Dave saying? What's Dave saying when you're fighting? Is he going, hit him, uppercut, big booming hook, or is he saying those sorts of things? Get on, get him.
Exactly. So in my debut cage fight, I was fighting against a guy who was an exponent of judo. So I didn't want to get into any stand-up wrestling with him. So I was quite happy standing up and trading punches with him.
Yeah.
Or I didn't mind being on the floor, but I didn't want to be in this sort of
fight on your feet.
This sort of stand-up grappling, so just this position I didn't want to be in. And we talked about it leading into the fight. So I got into this position, and I was within the first sort of 2 or 3 minutes into the fight, he had me pinned against the cage, and I had an opportunity to spin out of that and take the fight back to the middle of the cage. But Dave, who I hadn't heard from since the end of my my cricket career, said to me, you should go for a figure 4 takedown, which is one of the hardest judo. Having never done one judo lesson in my life, I was attempting the hardest judo throw in MMA, and unsurprisingly ended up on my back. So he's always there, and even to this day, like he's stupid things that we have those voices, don't we? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear from Dave so much these days because I'm not competing at the highest level, but I'd hear him regularly when I was playing for Surrey in England.
You said to me one time that you'd rather go fight than bowl fast again. Can you remember saying that? You'd rather have another fight than ever try to bowl fast again.
I've got another one. I'd rather stick pins in my eyes than do either, to be honest. Because I think when I was fighting, I might have been fighting at the time. So at that stage, I was quite happy to be fighting.
Sure.
But bowling really hurt my body. Just the pain. I remember having a really good conversation with Glenn McGrath, actually.
Mm.
And I hadn't seen him for a while. And he said, mate, what are you doing? You're like fighting in the cage. And I was with Glenn McGrath, Damien Martin, Jason Gillespie, Ian Harvey. And I started talking to them. And I said, mate, I would much rather go and fight in the cage than have to run out and try and bowl 20 overs, because that is the most painful and mentally tough thing that I think you can do in sport. Just that repetition, the pain you've got to push your body through. Until you've done it, I mean, unless I'm not sure what your demographic of your listener is, but I mean, maybe there's some people who played a bit of club cricket and they might bowl 10 overs on a Saturday, but I'm talking about bowling 20 odd, 22, 23, 25 overs in a day and then backing up the next day and having to try and do it again. Or maybe bowling 10 the next day and then your side gets bowled out and then you've got to do it the day after. It's like, I think it's the hardest thing in sport. I think that, to run up full tilt, contort your body into that position and then brace your front leg and go over it. Javelin throwers only throw three throws for a reason, because it's bloody hard on your body, but cricketers, the bowlers do it over and over. And I still think that's the hardest thing I've ever done.
I can never imagine getting in a ring, but I do the pain of bowling, and it's going to hurt, and you go and do it again, and then you go and do it again, and you go and do it again. There is something up there, isn't there? There is something that's not quite right, I think, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I've said it a few times, and I'll say it again. There's an element that I still think that there's an element that it's like a self-harm for boys, for males, that bowling fast and playing sport is a kind of our form of self-harm, but in a more productive way. Yeah. That there is a rush out of trying to bowl fast. There is some sort of feel alive of her, but I can't. I'm not. Yeah, it's a strange one, and I still don't understand why people would do it for such a long time.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is incredible where you think. I think it's much probably the same as people who go and train themselves, like to the point of throwing up or just train themselves so hard. There is some sort of satisfaction in pushing yourself through that pain for the good of the side or for the acknowledgement of the rest of the players in your side or on behalf of the side that you're playing for. There is something beautiful about that, really, I think. And I don't totally understand it, but I think you're right with the fighting and rugby. It's the same thing. Like it's the acceptance that you could get hurt doing it. Maybe that's. I mean, if there's no hurt or there's no struggle, then often there's no joy. Because if I said to you, do something that's incredibly easy, if you achieve it, then if I said put your finger on your nose and you did it, you're probably not going to take much satisfaction out of that because it's particularly easy. Yeah. But when you do something and you struggle and you strive and you sometimes succeed, sometimes you fail. When you do succeed, it's a really satisfying feeling. And I think it's kind of one of the things that keeps us going as humans is having that. Is that saying every man needs a project, isn't it?
True.
It's like every man needs to feel like they're achieving something
towards something. Hey, there's a big part of me, sort of as we sort of finish this, Adam. There's a big part of me that this sounds a little bit airy-fairy. That you've found some peace, if that makes sense. You've found a place and a comfort in life. Is that a fair thing to say? Given, look, again, I've known you for a little bit, over a few years, but there seems to Adam Hollioake at the moment seems like he's found a place and found some comfort in where you are and what you're doing. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's probably. I think there's been times in my life before when I thought I'd found what I enjoyed, and that would often be like, and when I was young, might have been like drinking a lot, womanizing, doing things that I shouldn't be doing, enjoying the trappings of fame. I was just a young kid, like wanting to drink from the forbidden glass like everybody else, but I was too young, and I've been given too much stuff too early. And and I think it's only now when I look back and I was like, wow, you know, I was just a young kid. And I've been through periods in my life. I have this saying which I repeat to myself every day now. It's like, be humble, or life will cast humbleness upon you. Because I can look back on the times when I haven't been humble, and I've been punished really badly, like really badly. And I believe it's life punishing me for my ego and my lack of humbleness. So I firmly believe that.
Dave's a big voice, isn't he?
Dave is a big voice.
Dave's a big voice. Whoa.
Yeah. So I firmly believe it. I wasn't particularly popular at school, 15, 16, 17 years old. I was a dick. I was, thought I was better than I was, the big professional, I was tough. I was like, so I didn't treat people, I wasn't humble, and I didn't treat people with respect. And in return, I wasn't popular. I wasn't liked. And I deserved that. That was the group bringing me back into life and teaching me that, and that's life. That's what life does. You sort of give me some humbleness. And then also I refer to that period when I was playing for England, and I was very successful, and I had everything going for me. I was financially well off. I was young. I was healthy. I was captain of England. And then I believe I wasn't being a good person, and I was, again, like wanting stuff that, again, I was young and I didn't really understand. And I believe that's why my brother was taken. I firmly do. I think it was a lesson in humility. And then later on in my life, again, probably it's about every 10 years, I have these periods where I go through where I feel like I forget and my ego gets too big, and I'm flying and everything's going great, and I start consuming everything instead of just being at peace and being humble and being a good person. And I just believe that now, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, I just firmly believe that you've got to be a good person. You've got to be humble, and you've got to lead with love and respect. And if you don't, then I believe bad things happen. So it's and it's just a really beautiful way of leading your life, I think. So I bet you weren't thinking this. You're thinking you're going to get a podcast on cricket and boxing.
No. Mate, this is exactly what I want to be. This is exactly the stuff is the bad stuff that makes us feel good, because of the how we turn the horrible bits into good bits.
And so I look back and I'm not proud of who I was or what I did, but it is part of my journey, and I acknowledge it, and I've got to face it and say, look, hey, I was a bit of a dick in that time of my life, and the only way you can do that is admit it and then move forward and try and be better for it. So so it's just weird though when I meet people at those periods in my life. They say, "Oh, I met you when I was like 17." I'm like, I just have to start apologising to people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sorry, mate.
About that.
Dave had the better of me. I was going through a bad stage.
Yeah. Is there an element? Oh no, I won't. You said something there that you have this. I feel bad sort of asking this, but you said that there's an element that you feel that Ben was taken from you because of your actions.
Yeah, I mean, I know that defines logic, because it was, he died in a car accident and I wasn't there, and I don't know. I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in energy, and not to the point where I like live by it every day. I don't look at the moon, what position it's in, or any of that. But I just believe that if you value something too much, when I look back at the times when I've failed or succumbed to things, it's when I overvalue for money, overvalue of
status, ego.
Overvalue of a person, of another person. I put them on too much of a pedestal. Overvalue of anything, I believe it can be taken from me. So, no, I'm not saying I overvalue my brother, but I think during that period of time, I just didn't have a good grasp of things, and I don't think I was being a particularly good person. Okay. And I don't like thinking that. Sometimes it's just, for me, it's my way of trying to humble myself and to try and make myself, because that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So for me, it's a way of keeping my ego in check, which is pretty big. So I've got to need something serious punishment to bring myself back into line, because it's very easy for me to get ahead of myself and start thinking I'm great and consuming and being that person that I don't want to be.
Wow. Okay. Well, mate, that's that's pretty. I'm gonna need to sleep after this, because that's quite tiring in terms of. No. I'm being serious, because hearing that and listening to that's a huge amount of honesty and a huge amount of weight that you carry and then use to live by. That's thank you for sharing. Jesus, that's way more than I was sort of thought we'd get to. Mate, that's cool, mate. Thank you, and I genuinely mean it. You do seem like you've found a place. You do seem like you're not hunting and trying to a finger in that one and a finger in that one. I've got a scheme, I've got an idea, and sort of dotted around it. You genuinely seem like you've found a place, and the place matches it. It's sort of you jigsaw piece in.
Yeah, I feel like it as well. I had someone probably say one of the nicest things ever anyone said to me the other day. I've got a social media company, and we just signed the NBA on, huge contract. We've been working on it for 4 or 5 years, and the CEO of the company, he said to me, "Oh, look, I want you to try and speak to your contacts at the WWE, UFC, and Chelsea Football Club and Tottenham." He said, "And look, if you do that, we'll give you a commission for anything." He said, "And I know you're not motivated by money. I know you don't care." And for me, it was like, yeah, I don't actually care, but I've come a long way, because there was a time when I really did. So I guess when you're measuring yourself not in how much money you've got, but just by being happy every day, and I try and be happy. I just try and notice every day the things which make me happy. That might be something as simple as having a cup of coffee, listening to a good song, the way my 8-year-old wants to play fight with me, the way my daughter gives me a big hug. Yeah. They're little things which happen every single day. And to me, if I acknowledge those and then they just make me happy, I just realize I'm happier. Instead of thinking, oh, well, as soon as I get, $5 million, I'll be able to do this, I'll be able to do that. Then you're going to spend your whole life hunting and not being happy. So until you get that, I just try and just enjoy those little things.
Smokes, that's awesome. Thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
No worries, mate.
It's been hard to track. It's been hard to get the time nailed down. It's been hard with time zones, etc. But mate, I appreciate that so much. That's such a hugely interesting chat, and I could keep going, but you get another drink. Mate, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, mate.
No, mate, that's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, and we'll see you when you're over here at some stage soon. Well,
yeah, mate, sure. Yeah, no, I think I'm looking at coming over. I think it'll probably still come over end of July or something like that.
If you can, but yeah.
If I'm allowed to, yeah. Whatever, what will be, will be. Yeah.
Awesome, mate. See you soon. Take care.
Good on you, mate. Cheers, buddy.
Hi, Ian O'Brien here. Thanks for getting to the end of this 108 with IOB. I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, please. But also leave us a message down below in the comments about what was your most interesting or favourite part of this chat. Thanks a lot. Love ya.